Oh boy.
No plans.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
We are here. Happy Tuesday, Dr. Jared Johnson coming to you with breaking news. Breaking news, apparently, just before we hopped on the live. Sam Webb from 247 Sports reporting that wide receiver Andrew Marsh is going to remain with the program for his sophomore season coming back in 2026. That is massive news, obviously on the heels of some big news that we got yesterday, with the announcement of Blake Frazier returning and Andrew Babalola returning, and then obviously capping that off with the return of Bryce Underwood, which is huge. And I was a little bit surprised that there was somewhat of a mixed reaction there for the return of Bryce. I don't know that we need to really go down that rabbit hole, but either way, man, things seem to be trending in the right direction. It felt like it was a little bit slow, and now over the last couple of days here, we're starting to get some big news out of Ann Arbor. I think fans were really needing that, because it seems like the transfer portal stuff has been a little bit slow. It's been pretty active outgoing, right? We just heard Jordan Young has entered the portal, a young Michigan safety in the portal as well. So we've seen a lot of names outgoing, but we haven't seen a lot of action coming in for Michigan, and that's to be expected, right? I mean, they were behind the 8 ball. You have to hire a head coach late. You're about 2 or 3 weeks behind now in terms of scheduling people, getting them on campus, and then ultimately getting a commitment. So we'll see what Whittingham does here in the coming days. But Jared, like I told you before we went live, I sat down in this seat. We got everything set up. I don't have a plan for tonight, so we're just going to we're digesting some of the news coming in. I mean, how are you feeling about some of the transfer portal stuff and some of the, I guess, returns that we've heard as far as folks coming back? By the way, Zeke Berry.
I was just going to say, I was happy about that one. I liked Zeke. I mean, he had some up and down play this year a little bit, but you can't replace experience, and in college, experience matters, and he's got experience. He's played in big games. He's covered big time receivers. I mean, he was one of the guys that was covering Jeremiah Smith last year when the 13-10 game, I believe he played a role there. I think he's going to be a good player, and I'm glad we got him back. And I think it's ludicrous what people are like, I wish Bryce would have just left. Like, what? Then go with him. I'm screenshotting all this shit, by the way. Like, I just screenshotting everybody who's an idiot. And when the kid comes out, because I was thinking about it, I was talking to my buddy about it, and you and I have talked about it too. Like, did he have the most amazing year? No. Did he progress what we wanted? Probably not. But think about that. So now you got a kid who's 18 years old who probably had shit coaching. I mean, you look at Chip Lindsey, just bounced, right? Like, probably knew he wasn't going to get retained anyways, but he just took off before the Schroen shit had even settled. He was gone, went to a lesser school, in my opinion. So he wasn't bought into the program. So Bryce had like nothing, and the kid still put up almost 2,500 yards and 17 total touchdowns, and rushed for 400 yards. So, I mean, if we get this kid some training and some proper coaching and some adults around him, which I feel like we have now, I think it's going to be exponential. And he got his guy back. I'm hearing rumors about Haynes. I really think Haynes is going to come back. I think that they're going to throw a bag at him that's going to make it worth his while. And where he's at in the NFL draft right now, it makes sense for him to come back. Wear and tear is not a big deal, I don't think, because he's going to have Marshall and Savion Hyder is going to take some snaps. You know what I mean? But I don't see why he wouldn't come back and play well and move himself up in the draft. He didn't have a lot of snaps this year. He didn't have a lot of snaps at Alabama. So as an NFL GM, I'm looking at this kid. He's not worn down. He didn't have a lot of snaps. So I did screenshot Chris talking about sexy football. Yes. Thank you.
We might get sexy football here in Ann Arbor. It sounds like it. I don't know. Have we gone live since the first of the year? We did, right? We did one show. I can't even remember at this point, but we did talk a little bit about Jason Beck and his offense, and you and I were talking about it on the phone.
We did. You and I did. Yep.
Yeah. I put something out on social media because I know a lot of people are curious, like what is the offense going to look like under Jason Beck? Chances are a lot of people in this Michigan fan base are not familiar with Utah's offense. We're all excited about the changes that are happening, but not really familiar with the type of offense that they run. And it is that spread formation, a lot of RPO stuff, a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of utilizing and playing to the strengths of your quarterback, particularly when you have a mobile quarterback. There was a lot that I liked when I watched the actual film and how some of the formations and some of the ways that they execute plays, and everything that I've heard from Jason Beck so far has been all positive. It seems like everywhere he's been, whether it's at UVA or West Virginia, or I'm sorry, not West Virginia, Utah, wherever he's been, he seems to have elevated the offense in those places. And so I would expect him to be able to do more in Ann Arbor simply because I think the athletes are a little bit better and I think that they can put more around him. Really excited to see what it does for Bryce Underwood. And I think you make a good point that, last year, a lot of times it felt like, let's not make any mistake about this. A lot of what you saw from Bryce Underwood was just the fact that he was a true freshman, right? A lot of the struggles, a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the mental errors, not throwing the ball out, forcing it, side arming it, kind of throwing on the run, a lot of backyard football type stuff, right? I think part of that is just by nature of being a true freshman. I think another big part of that is coaching and the type of leadership you have around him. And so when you combine all of those factors, and we know now the coaching staff wasn't, in my opinion, wasn't near what it should have been. And I will reiterate this because I said it before. I think there were some guys on that staff who individually doing the things that they were doing were good at their respective positions. But as a whole, collectively, I think that it was a disaster behind the scenes. And I think a lot of that is because of what we now know is going on with Sharon Moore. And I mean, when your head coach isn't right, it's hard to make a lot of things right in the building. So yeah, there's no question that with this new coaching staff, even though there's a lot of unfamiliarity with some of these guys, like when you listen to Kyle Whittingham talk, you can tell he's about his business. He's not about big sound bites, not this rah sort of guy. Like he is an old school, want to coach football, want to produce good football. He said as much in the interview with Dave Portnoy as he said, he said something to the effect of, I'm looking forward to quelling the drama and just getting back to football. Yeah, and when I heard that, I was like, man, that is music to my ears, because even when Jim Harbaugh was here, like he was always good for a soundbite. He was always an interesting guy to cover. And then obviously with Sharon Moore, there was some unknown because he had never been a head coach before. But moving a guy like this into that position, who's at this phase of his career, who's been doing it for as long as he has, who is just about football, and there's not going to be any of that other BS. I'm excited for it, man. And I think a lot of people in this fan base are excited to get back to football. I think Bryce Underwood is excited to get back to football. I think that's why you're starting to see some of these big name guys returning. And Jared, we talked about this a little bit early when you're talking about names out there of guys that absolutely have to come back. I mean, we're pretty damn close to like some of the key guys. Yeah. Bryce Underwood was an absolute got to retain that guy. Andrew Marsh was also on that list. You mentioned Justice Haynes. If you can get Justice Haynes back in the fold, along with Jordan Marshall, some of the pieces up front on the offense with Blake Frazier and Andrew Babalola and some of the other guys that are returning there, I am very, very optimistic about what we're going to see from this Michigan offense in 2026. Now, granted, there's still some work to do, and we need some more announcements to come through, but everything seems to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and like Jason Arell just said in the comments, I mean, you hired a Hall of Fame coach. If Kyle Whittingham had walked away and never coached again, he's a Hall of Fame coach, right? I mean, he won the National Coach of the Year in 2008, undefeated at Utah, 13-0. It reminds me of being around. I mean, I haven't been around Whittingham, but just I think he's going to have that attention to detail that Michigan had before, when Ben Herbert was there and Harbaugh was there and everything was lockstep and scripted and that's what young players need, right? Like I'll tell you, being in the military for 23 years, when we got young soldiers, what's the first thing you teach them? You teach them discipline and you teach them how to do things the right way, and you repeat it over and over and over and right, and that way it becomes what we call muscle memory, right? And if you looked at, I was thinking about when they played Texas. You and I texted that first game when Texas and Ohio State played, and we were saying, what in the hell is Arch Manning doing, throwing these side arms and these weird angles and all that shit? You know what you didn't see that final game against Michigan? Any of that bullshit. He was throwing, you know what I mean? His footwork was proper. He ran when he had the lanes. He looked like a totally different guy. And why is that? Probably because he got coached between game 1 and game 13 or 14, right? And he looked like a totally different quarterback. And you and I were talking about that too. Like he looks like a Heisman frontrunner next year, legitimately this time, because he got coached. Bryce kind of looked the same game one to the last game, a little bit. They opened it up a little bit. He ran a little bit more, and I think he'll run more with the Utah offense because Dampier, he ran for 600 and some yards, but
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad that the kid almost like wasted a season, and still they went 9-4. Like, I mean,
right.
I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Jake, but it was somebody talking about Michigan. And maybe it was Whittingham actually said, hey, for all the I think it was Coach, for all the distractions, this team went 9-4. Like a bunch of freshmen playing. Like you had 6 freshmen playing heavily on the offense, and you had a coach that was in the locker room on OnlyFans, and you went 9-4. Like whatever he was on. I don't know if that's what it's called. Is that not what it's called? What's it called, Chris? You know all the platforms.
You're talking to the wrong guy here. I just look at sport
left and right and DMing and doing all the stuff, man.
I got out of the game before that whole swipe left.
How the hell did he have Wi-Fi service anyways? I can't get shit for Wi-Fi service when I'm at that damn stadium, and he's out here just texting all these women.
You get that special stadium Wi-Fi. They got good Wi-Fi in there if you're part of the media and you can link up to it for sure. I mean, that's how those guys go live from the field, and they don't have any connection issues.
I don't have that connection, Chris. So maybe we should have blocked him from having Wi-Fi. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do have a question for you, though. I got a question for you.
But I'll say it worked out well. I think it worked out well. The way
we failed up.
Right. The way that everything transpired was obviously shitty, and you hate to see the program go through that type of thing. And you certainly hope that this is the last time that happens. But everything that has happened since, especially here lately, when you look at the coaching hire, you look at the staff that Kyle Whittingham has assembled, you look at some of the guys that are starting to come back, you never want it to happen the way it did. But it's hard sitting here right now not to feel better and more optimistic about where Michigan is headed in 2026 now versus where it was with Sharon Moore still leading the way and kind of uncertain about what's it going to look like when he's entering a make or break year. Is the expectation still to hold Michigan to championship or bust levels? And I think that, yes, I think that answer is there. This is a team that should be in the college football playoff conversation next year, especially when you factor in some of these returns and some of the guys that Kyle Whittingham has put on staff. So I'm excited for it, man. I feel very optimistic. You get a guy like Andrew Marsh coming back into the program. That's huge. And now I think it's really just down to one other guy. And you mentioned earlier, I think it's Justice Haynes. Now, Cole Sullivan is one of those things. It sounds like Oklahoma is definitely in the fight. I know that Brent Venables is going to do an in-home visit with Sullivan here soon. If not today, I think it's going to be sometime this week. But Oklahoma obviously pushing hard there. But from everything I've heard and everything I've read, it sounds like Cole Sullivan wants to stay at Michigan, that the people in his family are leaning more toward Michigan. And there's a lot of optimism that he's going to come back. So it might be one of those situations similar to what you saw with Zeke Berry, right? You enter, or you think about entering the portal, you maybe look around, whoever's representing you, sort of test the market. I don't think Cole Sullivan's going to have any troubles finding dollars elsewhere. I think that's probably why Oklahoma's in heavily pursuit. But it just, to me, he feels like a Michigan guy. It feels like he fits in here. And certainly when you get Bryce Underwood back and Andrew Marsh back and some of these other key figures, it just makes it easier for those other guys to make that decision. All right. What's the question?
Real quick, one of the Ron Thomas made a comment that I wanted to add to this, actually. Cusdahl, you think Cusdahl going in the portal, you think he knows something about Haynes coming back? I mean, if you're, you know what I mean? If you're around it, you're going to know things. And hell, those running backs, a lot of those rooms are pretty tight, right? So Haynes might have even texted the group and said, hey, finalizing some stuff, but I'm going to come back. And Cusdahl, I mean, he would have been RB2 without Haynes, and he might have stayed. But knowing that now you're going to be at least RB3, and Hyder is going to be fighting with you for some snaps, and you had a good season. I'm not mad at Cusdahl for leaving, but I'm exactly what I thought. Exactly what Ron Thomas said there when I saw that. I thought, man, I wonder if Haynes, you know what I mean, said something or kind of is leaning towards letting them go. And a good coach, position coach, which I think Tony Alford really is, would probably go to a guy like Cusdahl and say, hey, bud, listen, it looks like Haynes is going to come back. You might want to hit that portal. You know what I mean? Because the bottom line is you're going to be RB3-4. It's the facts. The guys in front of you, Marshall and Haynes, are much better, and Hyder is going to be tough to keep off the field. And Costell's a good serviceable back, man. I think he'll go somewhere and do well. I really do.
Well, there's no question. I mean, I think you try not to read too much into anything with the transfer portal these days, just because they happen so quick and it turns on a dime and you can't really count on anything. But I, kind of thought the same thing when I saw he was entering the portal, because I was thinking, I mean, you and I talked about it on the pod a number of times, that if Justice Haynes was indeed gone, even with Savion Hyder coming in as a true freshman, the 1-2 combination between Jordan Marshall and Bryson Cusdahl, I thought would have been more than sufficient for 2026. And I get that Bryson Cusdahl was buried on the depth chart and we didn't really get to see him until, Marshall and Haynes went down with injury. But Bryson Cusdahl is a legit running back that I think can get a lot of reps on a lot of teams across the country. And I'm not talking about smaller schools. I'm talking about Power 4 schools.
Lateral move. Yep.
He's quick. He runs hard. He hits the hole hard. He's fast. Yep. He's physical. I mean, he is everything you want in a running back. It just so happens potentially at Michigan, you may have Justice Haynes there with Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder. And so in that sense, yeah, man, I don't doubt it. These guys are close. Obviously, they're communicating. They're talking with each other. I think that they're all trying to help each other, get to whatever the best possible position is. And so if those conversations took place, and that's why Cusdahl ended up entering the portal, I mean, I don't think it makes sense for him to do that, especially, you get Jasper Parker leaving, who's now going to be with Arkansas. I believe he committed to Arkansas earlier today. But, when you look at the way the running back room was, I don't think it would have made any sense for Bryson Cusdahl to leave if it was Justice Haynes to the NFL and it was just Jordan Marshall coming back, because that would have been a 1-2 combination. And we know Michigan likes to use both backs. They like to cycle through, like to keep them fresh. And so maybe Ron Thomas, it's possible. It's certainly, I'll say this, it's not a bad sign, right, that he left. I think it only opens the door for a return of Justice Haynes. And man, if you get Justice Haynes back in this offense fully healthy for another year, with Jordan Marshall again for another year, with a year of experience under Bryce Underwood, with a year of experience of Andrew Marsh, you add a couple guys out of the portal. Maybe you're going to need some guys up front. We'll see what happens there. I just think this offense has the potential to be everything we thought it could be under Bryce Underwood. I'm excited for it, but it's a cautious optimism, I would say, because we get excited about things a lot. We tend to think things are going to happen, and then it doesn't typically look the way we want it to look. But I don't know, man. Everything seems to be trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, they and kudos to Biff. He's gone now, but I mean, he kind of held it together, and a lot of players and family members, Kirk Herbstreit even said, like, that dude kept the team together, right? Like, got those kids to say, hey, slow down. Let's see who comes in. Let's see what happens. No, don't panic and everybody leave. And they did it. And it kind of speaks to the testament and the power of Michigan and the power of the school. And I also, man, it was clutch getting Bryce back, right? If Bryce leaves, I feel like the floodgates open.
Yeah, same.
I'm gonna say this, and people can believe me or not. I truly never thought he was gonna leave. I'm telling you, you watch that 5 stars, I think it's on Paramount Plus or whatever. That kid loved Michigan since he was 7 years old. And I think my Wi-Fi is from 1952 there. Sorry about that. But that kid loved Michigan since he was, they didn't have Wi-Fi in 1950. I know that. But anyways, so he just really loved Michigan, and he's a big family guy too. And you could see that. And I think it would have killed him to have to move. And oddly enough, if you look at that show, his parents also have this really nice house now. So, I think that there's a little bit of stuff going on there where they're kind of locked in. And I was never worried, honestly. I was more worried about Marsh leaving, to be honest.
Yeah, really well, same. I think that with the way things work today, you talk about, well, his family's here and, he's got roots here and all of that stuff. But dude, you can make a lot of shit happen with the type of money that they're throwing around today. And so again, like nothing is ever certain, but certainly when, you grew up in the state and you've kind of got a history with the program, even if that means you just grew up a Michigan fan. I mean, look at Blake Frazier, right? His family's got history with the program. Yeah. And so it's always encouraging to see those guys stick around. But dude, when stuff happens like what happened at Michigan, and you squander, if you're the staff, not Bryce, because I think that year of reps he got is incredibly valuable and is going to pay off in a big way in 2026. But I think the staff squandered it. I think they squandered. There's no question they squandered an opportunity, especially Sharon Moore. Like that whole year was a year of squandered opportunities where you had a roster that, even though it was young, and even though it was capable of making big time mistakes, was also still one win away from playing in the college football playoff. And so it's hard, like I said before, man, it's hard not to feel excited and optimistic about the pieces that they have returning, and then the belief in Kyle Whittingham that they can supplement it and fill it out in the transfer portal. But I think that's one of the things that people are sort of waiting on, right? You see all of these departures. I mean, it's a lot when you look at the guys that are declaring for the NFL. I think I just had the list up in front of me, but let me pull it up again just so I can riff through it real quick.
And the deadline for the draft is sorry to interrupt you, but the deadline for the draft is January 14th too. So
January 14th, right? And you know,
Haynes has about a week.
Right. Key pieces of this roster: Max Bredesen, Jayshon Barham, Derek Moore, Giovanni El Hadi, Marlon Klein, Dominic Zavada, Donovan McCulley, Greg Crippen. I mean, those are all starters. Those are all key contributors on this roster that have, declared for the NFL. And then when you go down the list of the guys that entered the portal, I mean, it's significant. It's a large list, but we've talked about this before. The list might be big, but the impact players on there are not. You look at Cole Sullivan, obviously that's a big one. You're getting Zeke Berry back out of the portal. Andrew Sprague and Jake Guarnera, I think those are two that you really got to keep your eye on. But outside of that, man, I think all of these guys are replaceable through the portal. And so we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think Michigan has suffered any big losses, and most of the key guys you wanted to return have already announced their return. So now you're just waiting on a couple more guys. You want to see what's going to happen with Cole Sullivan. Again, it sounds like that's more leaning toward Michigan, and you want to see what happens with Justice Haynes. And Jared, to your point, you don't have that much longer before you got to declare for the NFL. So you get those pieces back, plus you get Cole Sullivan back. And I don't know, Jimmy Rolder, I think he's another one of those guys that's going back and forth between returning and declaring. We'll see what happens.
I think Rolder comes back. I don't think there's enough tape on him.
Some of the reporting I've read seems that he's leaning more toward the NFL. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But again,
who would you take in that if you were an NFL GM? Would you rather have Sullivan or would you rather have Rolder?
I don't know, man. I love Cole Sullivan. I love Cole Sullivan.
He's a ball hawk. I like him.
Right. I think that he will end up, if he continues on his trajectory. I mean, listen to the way Wink Martindale used to talk about Cole Sullivan. I remember I was in the press conference during Wink Martindale's first press conference after taking the job at Michigan, and one of the first guys he mentioned was Cole Sullivan. He singled him out and he said, that guy is going to be a special linebacker at this level if he keeps on that trajectory. And I feel the same way. You saw it last season, right, where he was making big time plays. At one point in time, he was leading the team in interceptions. Hell, I haven't looked at the numbers, but he might have been the team leader in interceptions. I think
he was.
This season, but right. He is a ball hawk. He's all over the place. When you're down on the field with him, I mean, he's a massive dude. He's huge. And so I think he's got the potential, but I also have a soft spot for Jimmy Rolder, man. I think that guy is a phenomenal linebacker. And I think if he chooses to test the waters in the NFL, I think he'll get picked up somewhere, and he could be one of those guys that carves out a nice career in the league. But I certainly don't think it would hurt having another year at Michigan. I feel the same way about Marlon Klein as well, but Klein is one of those where I think maybe the transition made a little more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a specimen. He's got the body. He's got the size. He's got shit. The stuff that you can't teach, right? I mean, somebody's going to get a hold of him. And apparently, once tight ends leave Michigan, they just light it up anyways. Barner and Colston Loveland are just tearing it up in the NFL right now.
Colston Loveland was the most there was no way he was not going to succeed in the NFL. Like if you ever, I mean, certainly if you watched him, but if you spent time around him or you saw him down on the field and just what he was capable of doing, he was the most sure thing first round draft pick I think that there was. And certainly he's living up to that with the Chicago Bears. Just a perfect pairing with that guy. And I think you talk about guys that are going to carve out a long, successful career in the league. Colston Loveland certainly seems like one of those dudes.
Remember when we were at that event with Donovan and Colston, and after we finished, we started playing hoops with them?
Yes.
Remember, and Colston just steps out and starts banging threes, and we're like, "What's this guy?"
I didn't know.
You were dunking and shit. Remember? Was that a different time?
Yeah. So I don't know if we've talked about this, but we were at Chrysler Center, and Jared was doing an event with the Army National Guard. And I think we brought in a bunch of kids or whatever. And Colston Loveland was there. Donovan Edwards was there. And after the event was over, everybody left and we all stayed behind. We started playing basketball at Chrysler Center, which was awesome in and of itself. But dude, Colston Loveland, I mean, I love Donovan Edwards. Not a basketball player. Colston Loveland is a baller. He picked up the ball and it was like he was nailing them from deep. He was he could do anything on the court. I don't know if he has a background in basketball, but you talk about a well-rounded athlete, you can see why he was successful on the football field. I mean, he is just pure athlete all the way around. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to watch, man. It's cool to watch those guys succeed at the next level.
So I'll tell you, I just went and checked because I know you like Rolder, but so right now they have him mocked 416th overall as just an overall talent, and his projected draft is undrafted free agent. So why wouldn't he come back?
I was just going to say that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's different things that might have different projections in different places.
But if you're that low, you know what I'm saying? It's not like they're saying third round, which you could sneak into the second or maybe have a good combine and get into the first. But if you're projected undrafted right now, even if you crush the combine, you're going to sneak into the sixth or fifth round, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you come back to Michigan, and you have a good season, now you're up in those, and that matters if fans don't pay too much attention to the NFL. But the higher you are, you get that guaranteed money, and you know what I mean. And teams are also, they're more willing to give you chances when you're a third round pick because they don't want to waste a third round pick. If you're an undrafted guy, you fumble a ball at during training camp, they're probably like, man, see you later, Bryler. You're terrible. You know what I mean? But Johnson, you get to stay because obviously you're good looking and you were a third round pick.
And you're elite, right? That's the thing about Holder. Like I think he's a great linebacker. There's nothing that really does he have elite speed? I'm not sure. Elite athleticism? I'm not really sure.
Seen enough of him, I don't think.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think can have a solid career in the league, but I just, to your point, and whatever that draft projection is, I don't know if there's anything about him that you can look at and say, I can see him going in the first, 4 rounds of the NFL draft. And maybe another year would help him out. I think the same thing. Well, no, not the same thing. With Justice Haynes, it's completely different because I think a lot of teams are going to look at him and see that speed and see that power and the way that he can run between the tackles, but the way he can burst. When he gets out in the open field, it's hard to catch him. But I think that when you're a running back like that and you miss so much of the season, if he had played the entire season, I don't think there's any question that he's gone. But given the fact that he missed a considerable amount of time, and now you've got a new staff in here, and there might be a renewed sense of, hey, we can really do something with the pieces that we've got coming back. I can increase my draft stock. And then, we talk about NIL and portal and all that other stuff, and the downside to it. One of the biggest benefits to it is the NIL and the transfer portal are the reason why Justice Haynes is in Ann Arbor, and that's the reason why he might turn down the NFL for one more year in Ann Arbor. So there are good things that can come of it. I think a guy like Justice Haynes is a prime example of that, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because
his trajectory though kind of reminds me of Blake, if you think about it, because Blake came out and said, hey, if I hadn't got hurt in that Illinois game the year before we won the Natty, he was leaving. Whether they wanted it or not, he was
probably going to New York too.
Yeah, he was going to be a Heisman guy, and he was going to go. And he had that injury. Now, his was a little bit more serious than I think the ones that Haynes dealt with. But again, if you put yourselves in the shoes of a GM, and I'm super smart about football, you look at Haynes and you wonder, like, man, he had a lot of injuries. Like, it was nagging, and it was this, and it was that. Is he injury prone? And everything's running back by committee now anyways. Everybody runs 2 running backs, right? You got the Rams they got Corum and they got Kyron Williams, and Blake's doing great this year now. I think Haynes can look at that, and Michigan can say, hey, listen, man, you come back, prove to him that you're not an injury prone guy, have a good year. We're not going to destroy you because you got 2 other guys in the room that can split reps. And then you go off to the NFL, probably 3rd round pick, just like you were projected this year. And nothing changes except for you got that bag from the NIL.
Yeah.
And that's more than he's going to make right now anyways in his first year in the NFL. So
most likely. There's nothing wrong with that, man. If you can, that's a lot of times the difference between, barely making the college football playoff and having a championship roster is, can you convince one of those guys who are NFL ready to come back and spend one more year in your program? If Justice Haynes comes back in 2026, that's an NFL running back in your program for an entire year, assuming that you can keep him healthy. I feel the same thing about Jordan Marshall as well. Jordan Marshall is one of those guys that I know he's kind of, described as a bruiser and in between the tackles, not necessarily a burner, but we saw it later in the season where, especially against Northwestern, he can get out in the open field. He can rip off some big chunk plays. And so again, that 1-2 combination will be incredibly, incredibly difficult for any defense to stop. And then you put in a competent offensive coordinator with a head coach who's completely locked in, who only came to Michigan because he believed that's a spot where he can win it all. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that thing where I get overly excited about what's to come here in January, but that tickle is there.
Undefeated season.
Travis Brickell from the Facebook page says, Marsh, Haynes, Marshall, Underwood, that's a damn good core to build on offense. There's no question. And then throw in Blake Frazier and throw in Andrew Babalola, who's kind of the forgotten guy because he missed the entire season. I think it was ACL that he had preseason.
And he was competing for the starting spot before that, right? Like
he was competing for the starting spot.
And came out and said, "My God, this guy is a stud!" Like,
and given how much
11th best recruit in the year. I mean, they had number 1 and number 11, and some had him even higher at some points. I mean, the kid's going to be a stud. And then somebody else mentioned you still got Haywood, like Ty Haywood. He fell, towards the end. He was a 5-star for Bama, and then we got him, and then that Michigan hatred came in, and Rivals and all those idiots dropped him to 4-star. We talked about that before, but he's still a massive dude, and he got a few reps this year, and I think he'll compete. Yeah. Did you see that Malachi Lee? Did you the kid that we got coming in this year from Hawaii? Did you see how big he is right now?
Yeah, he's put on 20 or 30 pounds or something like that. I know he's a big dude.
6'7", 350 pound, 18-year-old kid.
It's a big deal, man.
He's a mauler, bro. He could compete for a spot next year too. That's just size, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they've got enough key pieces coming back, and they might have some young pieces that are thrust in another big role next season. But again, so much of this is about having a competent coaching staff around you, guys that can truly develop you, guys that know how to get the best out of the players they have. And I just think this staff, looking back on it, can you honestly say that Michigan's previous staff got the best out of the roster they had at their disposal? I think everybody would answer a resounding no. And so I think it can only be uphill from here. Jared Morris from the YouTube page says Mel Kiper has Jimmy Rolder as the 12th best off the ball linebacker in his mock.
Yeah, I just tried to look that up, and it says the article is no longer there. So I don't know what happened.
He deleted it. Mel Kiper put it out, and I was like,
and then deleted it. I don't doubt that. 12th. I mean, God, you think he's the 12th best in the country?
You know what? I would be completely lying if I could name 11 guys who were ahead of him. I don't follow it that closely to where I can start to go through mock drafts and who would be a good projected pick where. I just know guys that are decent here, and I look at Jimmy Rolder and I think he's a guy that can play in the league, but he's also a guy that I think would benefit from another year at Michigan, assuming that the defense is as good as we all think it can be. You're talking about a defense that's losing a lot of guys, particularly up front on the defensive line. I think that's where you got to do a lot of work in the transfer portal. The secondary right now, we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Jair Hill. I think last I heard it's encouraging, promising that he's coming back. I think the return of Zeke Berry can help with that because he was one of those guys that was a leader in the secondary. But, there's no question that there is work to be done via the transfer portal, and Kyle Whittingham and his staff are certainly hard at work doing that. But again, they've got about a 2 or 3 week delay in terms of getting started on all of that stuff.
I think you're going to see that freshman Carter Meadows get some snaps next year too. You shared some clips of him just playing basketball. Like, the kid's just an absolute athlete, and I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. He's big. He's got the size. He doesn't need to come to Michigan and put on weight. You know what I mean? But here's another question I have for you. If you were the head coach and say Justice Haynes came out and said, "Hey, listen, coach, I'm going to come back. Like, we got the deal worked out." Would you announce that right now, or would you sit on it in the hopes of enticing wide receivers to come? Because I'm telling you, if I'm a wide receiver and I'm looking at Michigan, I'm like, all right, Bryce Underwood. Like, I look at the new offense, they're going to throw it. Their quarterback threw it 300 times. Like, okay, I might want to go there. And then I hear Justice Haynes is coming back with Marshall and Savion Hyder. I might not come to Michigan because that's like the deepest running back room in history. And every fan, even you, Mr. Sexy Football, understands that they're going to win games next year with that running back room just running the damn ball. They're going to be that good on the ball. So I'm wondering if that's
no. To answer your question, absolutely not. I would not hold that back because the return of Justice Haynes with Jordan Marshall and Savion Hyder in that running back room, along with Bryce Underwood, along with Andrew Marsh, along with some of the pieces they have up front. If I'm a wide receiver, I want to get numbers. I want to make sure I'm going to be utilized the right way. I also want to go and play for a team that's legitimately going to compete for a national championship. And Justice Haynes is a legitimate Heisman Trophy caliber running back. I mean, he was on that trajectory until he got sidelined and derailed by injury. And so I certainly think that, that if you've got Justice Haynes locked in and you can make that announcement, I think you make that announcement. And I think that's only going to be more enticing to the offensive linemen you want to target, the tight ends you might want to target, the wide receivers you might want to target, because now you're building a complete offense. And I think any guy that you would want to have here, if they're just going somewhere to strictly get the numbers and they want to pad their stats, probably not the right guy for you. But if you got a guy that's looking at Ann Arbor and says, hey man, I can go there and I can make plays and I can work with Bryce and I can work with Andrew Marsh and I've got a legitimate chance to compete for a national championship. To me, that sounds pretty damn appealing. And then there's also the added incentive of like, anytime you have that block M on your resume as part of your degree, whatever it is, like there's always that part of it as well. Once Jared, once you get in with those Michigan people and you're part of that community, they're going to make sure that you're well taken care of. And so, I would certainly do. They certainly do. Let me ask you this. What is this in relation to here? I see Tony Petrosky at like 6:31 says, do it, Chris. And then right afterwards, CJ Frazier, yes, you are going to do that thing. That's what you do, Chris. What the hell is this? What is this about? You're
going to predict that they're going undefeated and winning a national championship in January, which you do every damn year. This is I'm on paper, this team. and you, as you said, you weren't going to do it. You were literally doing it. You were writing undefeated on the board.
Guilty as charged. Okay. There's always a part of me at some point in the year where, dude, I did it with Alex Orji. I'm like, you know what? Alex Orji, he's that dude. Look out.
You bought his jersey. It was weird. Yeah.
I didn't buy the jersey, but I was all in. I thought it was going to go in a completely different direction. And
it went backwards.
Honestly, that year and that quarterback situation was the time where I was like, you know what? I think you just need to dial it back a little bit and be a little more practical here. But then people think that you're being negative or you're not being excited enough. And so I don't know. Yeah. It's an emotional roller coaster doing this. Covering this team.
I love your optimism personally. I think it's fantastic. You
gotta have it. I mean, if you're not going to be optimistic, what's the point of being?
You don't hedge your bets at all. That's why you would be a terrible gambler. You just say, "I'm all in." Like what? It's the first hand.
I'm all in.
Pocket deuces. I'm all in.
Let me ask you this: when you look at this roster, and I know that there are some unknowns right now, but when you look at this roster and you're thinking about the transfer portal in particular, if you were somebody calling the shots in that building right now, what's, I guess, the one position on your list that you're willing to overpay for because you got to get the best guy at that position? If you could, are we talking edge rusher? Are we talking wide receiver? Are you trying to shore up the offensive line? What's one position you're willing to overpay for?
Crazy, because a week ago we were locked in at wide receiver, right? We said wide receiver is it. I don't think that that's the number one position anymore. Now, I think we've kind of flipped, like with the guys that have said they're coming back. I'm more comfortable with the offense right now than I am with the defense. Because who do we have left on the line? I mean, so Trey Williams is gone. Pierce is going to be gone. Jayshon Barham is gone. Etta was going to be a guy that could compete for a job. He's gone. Moore is gone. Sullivan's in the portal right now. Rolder, we don't know. That's your front seven. Like, what? Who's left? Who's coming up? I mean, I know we got Nate Marshall. I think Nate Marshall's going to be good. So for me, it's anything along that defensive line. And I think
it's, by the way, it's Man-Mosa. Larry McCall from Utah. It's not a Mosa. Mimosa is what the ladies drink. It's a Man-Mosa.
Copywritten.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, no, I think the defensive line is where you got to have that, right? We struggled on that defensive line this year, which surprised you and I both, I think, because when we got the two big transfers, Williams and Pierce, we thought, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to push the ball. They're going to hold the line, and they just didn't do it. And I think you can get, I've looked at like what portal players cost and all this, right? Like those defensive linemen, edge rushers are a little bit more, but I'm not as concerned on the edge because I really think Nate Marshall is going to take a leap forward this year.
Hold timeout. We have some breaking news here on the podcast. We have some breaking news for anybody who's watching along. It's not confirmed yet, but this is per Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports. He says,
pretty reliable,
Michigan star junior running back Justice Haynes is strongly considering returning to college for another year instead of leaving for the NFL. So, look, man,
telling you, all the signs.
Things are trending in the right direction for sure. And I think you could go back to, we talked about it earlier in the show, Bryson Cusdahl entering the transfer portal, probably an indicator that Justice Haynes was leaning that way. And per Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports, Justice Haynes is in fact leaning heavily on returning to Ann Arbor. So
Now you can do it, Chris. Now do it. Go overboard.
I can feel it in my DNA.
You're holding the natty.
Bubble up here. I might go get my championship gear. I might start to get a little weird. I might start predicting 12-0, beating Ohio State. Big Ten champion. Dude.
Let's get flights. Where's the championship next?
Looking for hotels in Pasadena. I might be there. But hey, look, this is credit to Kyle Whittingham and credit to this staff for having to come into, let's be honest, a complete cluster of an issue and, putting in the necessary work. Kyle Whittingham talked about it, that his top priority was roster retention. And I have zero doubt that if your top priority was roster retention, you want to get Bryce Underwood back. That was probably priority number one, but I got to imagine 1A was Bryce, 1B was probably Justice Haynes. How can we keep that guy in Ann Arbor for another year? Because like I said earlier, that is an NFL running back that you're going to have on your roster. And so it certainly sounds like Justice Haynes is going to be returning to Michigan for another year, again, per Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports. Not confirmed yet, but he says according to his sources. He's legit. And that's the thing. Like if it was Wolverine Furry Nuts 678 that was reporting this, I probably wouldn't say it on the podcast. But Matt Zenitz.
I was going to say a name, but I won't say it.
Well, we don't want to do that. We know who they are.
The other thing to think about too is like you look at the guys that are going to the NFL. Some of those guys had probably some pretty decent chunks of the NIL bag too, and so that's going back in. Like Jayshon Barham, he flirted with the NFL last year, and they clearly paid him to bring him back. Ernest Hausman retired. He came back. He certainly got some money. So Payne and Williams, the transfers, they got some money. So that that kind of opens that budget back up too. So. And Michigan's not hurting for cash, and we know this. We've been around and seen some of the people that are around that program, and they're gonna be just fine. Did you see that they finally came out that Ohio State paid $35 million for that roster this year?
No, I didn't. But I'm also
$5 million, dude, for that. Like, what are we?
Well, let's not forget though that for a good part of the season, though, the belief was that was the best. I mean, they were. They looked incredibly efficient. They looked like a team that was, they were one of the favorites to win a national championship. And then they absolutely just got bodied by Indiana. And, things fell apart in the college football playoff. And so, that just goes to show that it's not an exact science, even with Texas Tech. Look at Texas Tech. They get the first round bye, and then they got their asses absolutely handed to them by what? Ole Miss, was it? That beat the shit out of them? Who beat Texas Tech?
They didn't get the shit.
Was it Miami? Texas Tech?
Did they?
Texas Tech got blown out.
They got beat 19-0. Yeah.
I don't think they scored a touchdown.
No, they scored 0. They're one of only 2 teams to ever be in the college football playoff and not score a point. Who was the other one?
Well, I think that's Michigan State, right?
My man. But I think Texas Tech. If you watch that game, though, Graham Mertz had like the worst game.
Oh yeah, it was Oregon. I'm sorry, it was Oregon that beat the shit.
Oregon, yeah, sorry, but yeah, he had the worst game of his entire career. That I felt bad. I was rooting for Texas Tech. Their defense was still incredible. That game, like they held a pretty good Oregon offense to 19 points, and their offense turned the ball over quite a bit, put them in bad spots. That defense was still incredible, and I think that's where Michigan's got to go. Go back to your question. We have got to build that defensive line. We got to put some money on it, and I feel like, I don't know who's going to be on that line right now.
I almost agree with you. I feel like if you had asked me this 2 or 3 weeks ago, I probably would have said wide receiver. That's got to, go all in, overpay for a wide receiver. I think the return of Andrew Marsh has me. I still feel that way. I feel like you've got to be incredibly aggressive in going after wide receivers to surround Bryce Underwood with as many weapons as you possibly can. Donovan McCulley was serviceable. I don't know that he was a game changer necessarily. He was capable of making big time plays, but I think you got to go above and beyond what you got out of Donovan McCulley. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking him, but I just want to see more out of a wide receiver you're going to bring in. But overall, if I were to, I'd be in your camp. It's either defensive line, edge rusher. Like if there's an elite edge rusher out there, somebody who can wreck the game, somebody who can get to the quarterback, somebody who's a sure thing. If you're Michigan, I'm totally fine with overpaying for a guy like that, because I think that everything you do in 2026 is going to be predicated on, is the Michigan defense still legit? Is it still one of the top 10, top 15 units in the country? And as long as you've got that working in your favor, the other things that they'll have going on offensively, I think it will be enough to keep them in every game. And I feel like a broken record because I said that all through 2025, right? I said defense is strong, but if you've got, here we go. Who is this person? Jared, do you know who this person is?
I don't know. I love this person though. They nailed it. Give them their flowers, bro. Give them their flowers.
Sunny Days 885 on the last live that we did. They spent a considerable amount of time in $2 increments. They paid about $75 for talking about Gennaro Guilford. I believe he's the defensive backs coach that came over from BYU, is it? Is that correct? Was it BYU? Yeah. And then here we are again. Yes, giving you your flowers. Sunny Days says, how about that Gennaro Guilford? You were on the money there. And he's in Ann Arbor now. I know there's a lot of people.
And we're excited about it. Like
everybody's excited about it.
Yeah, after Sunny Days put us on, we did some research and dude's a good secondary coach. Like had some stud players, and hopefully can bring some with him. We're a fan of that too. So Sunny Days, start sending your $2 to the players instead of us, so we can get them over here. Chris doesn't need $2.
And listen, I know that another big part of this was people were asking in terms of the coaching staff, what was Michigan going to do as far as strength and conditioning goes? And we got our answer to that. Is they brought in the guy from Utah. I'm going to slaughter his last name. Is it Doug Alicia? Is that how you say it? Elisaya?
I'm not going to try to say it wrong in case I ever meet the guy and he beats my ass. So
I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to butcher it, especially if he's like a Ben Herbert type guy. You don't want to piss those guys off. But you talk about all of these moves that are stacking up in Michigan's favor. Bringing in a new strength and conditioning coach, a guy who was at Utah for a long time. And I've said this a number of times now. What was Utah best known for when you would listen to other head coaches talk about playing Utah? It was toughness, physicality. And so being able to bring a guy like that who was, and Jared, we've talked about this before with Ben Herbert, what is the strength and conditioning coach on your team? That is the heartbeat of your team. That is the guy who spends the most time with your players in the offseason, making sure they're right, not just physically, but making sure they're right mentally as well. And so it seems like across the board, Jared, Michigan has made upgrades from a staff standpoint. Now it's just a matter of what this roster is going to look like. But so far, man, the right pieces are falling into place. And holy shit, if you get Justice Haynes back for a final year, this offense, man, it's, again, I'm going to keep the fandom locked in tight here because we're going to need to see results, but it's hard not to be pretty excited about where this thing is headed.
Yeah, and so I just had to look real quick. So Alicia played defensive tackle in college. They have him listed at 6'3", upwards over 260 pounds. So that's you've been around him, and I don't know if any of the fans have been around him, but when you were around Ben Herbert, it was intimidating. He was a great dude. He did a lot for behind the scenes for the military for when I was there. A great supporter of the military, but and I'm telling you, Jim Harbaugh told that story about when he shook his hand and he peered through his soul. I mean, I've been in some crazy situations in the military, but being around Ben Herbert was one of the he had that it factor, which is what you need when those coaches are. And I think that this, I'm not gonna say his last name, is gonna bring that same, you know what I mean, that same kind of toughness, and that's what Michigan needs to get back. I mean, we got out tough sometimes last year. I mean, our coach was crying half the time, so I guess that makes sense.
I mean, coach is crying, and listen, I don't want to get too caught up into this stuff because
go for it.
But okay, like wearing diamond chains on, like there was a lot of diamond chains and guys wearing grills and just a lot of to me, once Sharon took over, it wasn't as buttoned up as it was under Jim Harbaugh, under Jim Harbaugh. And I get the sense that probably under a guy like Kyle Whittingham, things are going to go back to being a little more buttoned up. I'm not trying to be the no fun guy. I know that guys are getting big NIL money, and I know that guys like to wear chains and necklaces and grills and all that shit. Like, I understand that. But there was just a sense that when you were around it, that it was more like Sherrone Moore was a buddy. He was one of the guys. He was one of the dudes. And you could just kind of be an 18, 19-year-old kid around one of your boys, one of your dudes. I was in the tunnel for the Ohio State game when Michigan was coming down the tunnel. And I can tell you, there was a distinct difference from the way Ohio State entered that stadium and from the way Michigan entered that stadium. Ohio State came down quiet. They weren't playing any music. Ryan Day had a very serious look on his face, and then he let his team out in the field. And then Michigan came down, and they had the boom box blaring. Guys were hooting and hollering and dancing, and Sherrone Moore was right there in the front. I mean, I put the video out. He's dancing, and he's hooting and hollering, and it's just – I'm not saying that can't work. I'm just saying that sometimes having like a general leading, like you're not going to see Nick Saban, walking down a tunnel to, I don't know, name out a rapper, and he's dancing around and
Eddie Watt.
Acting for right, Fetty Wap. You're not going to see Nick Saban getting lit to Fetty Wap coming down the tunnel to go play Georgia, right? He was just a different type of thing. And so I think you're going to get more of that side of it with Kyle Whittingham, and hopefully it pushes the guys to get more out of themselves.
And it's wild too, because you talk about both those two, the game, right? The game this year, how Michigan acted, and the game last year, how Michigan acted. Remember last year, Ohio State was the idiots out there dancing. They lined up so the Michigan guys had to.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Walk through, and what the Michigan guys do? They walked through, didn't say shit, didn't even look at him, didn't address it. Professional, went out and won the game, and it seemed like it regressed this year. But again, from what we know now, the coach was not locked in, might not even have been around as much as he should have been.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you get. The players kind of were running the show a little bit, and
I think so. I mean, and
yeah, I do too.
The other part of this is like, I don't want to get too far down this path, but I remember, distinctly covering that 2023 team and even leading up to it. I mean, when you were around them, and Jared, because we both spent a lot of time around these guys, you knew who the leaders were. There was no question about who the guys were that were leading that team, the captains, the guys that were like driving the train. And there were a lot of them. You talk about Mike Sainristil, you talk about Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy and, Zach Zinner and Trevor Keegan and all these guys who were just like, you knew that they were leading the way. It was really hard to find that on this team. And it's not a knock against any of the guys who were captains, but it's hard to lead when you're not really on the field all that much, or when things aren't going well and guys don't rise up and they don't embrace that role. And so again, I just think that leadership, no matter how you cut it, it starts from the top, right? It's from the guy at the very top. And I think that all of that filters down to everything else that's going on. And so to me, if it's Sherrone Moore or Kyle Whittingham, give me Kyle Whittingham every single day of the week and the type of leadership he's going to bring to that building. And I think that alone is going to lead to better production on the field. It's going to lead to guys who are locked in, guys who are taking their craft a little more seriously, because again, Kyle Whittingham doesn't strike me as the type of guy who wants to get down to Fetty Wap in the tunnel before the game, right? It's just kind of where it's at, man. Brian Kirsch from the Facebook page, I pulled this up a while ago, and I just want to try. I want to try to understand this. Brian says Michigan needs a Will Howard type quarterback. Ohio State won a natty with him. Michigan will win with the offensive line. Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, and Savion Hyder, not Underwood, and he won't like it. I'm not sure what the last part there is. He won't like it. But I guess Brian is basically trying to say that you need a different type of quarterback to win with this offense, that Bryce Underwood isn't it. I mean, Jared, thoughts on that?
Disagree vehemently. I don't even know why you put that up there. No disrespect, Brian, but maybe because it's so crazy of a take. Didn't Will Howard score like 10 points against a terrible Michigan team? I mean, I don't think that Will Howard won them the national championship. I mean, I think their defense was phenomenal. They had great receivers and they got hot at the right time, and they have a ton of skill players around them. Who pick Underwood, Howard? Who do you want?
I mean, if you would ask me, maybe I'd give some credit
going into next year.
Bryce Underwood every day of the week. If you were asking me last year, if you had what the hell was his name?
Howard.
Will Howard from Ohio State. If that was last year, then I would probably go Will Howard and let Bryce Underwood, redshirt as a true freshman and learn behind a guy like that. I mean, as much as you can learn behind a guy like that. But that, I think, probably would have made sense. But that's in line. The reason I put that up is because it's in line with a lot of what I'm seeing. There are just some people after this last year that have completely jumped off the Bryce Underwood bandwagon. They don't think he's the guy. They don't think he's capable. The numbers weren't where they wanted him to be. And then you look at the Texas game where he made some mistakes, and that was almost validation for some of these people. And so it's crazy to me that if you were to tell me that, just after, like an hour after Bryce Underwood flipped from LSU to Michigan, that fast forward through his freshman season as the starter, there would be people in this fan base saying, get him out of here. I would have been like, what could have possibly happened? And then when you look at his numbers, it's like, okay, not overly impressive. Didn't necessarily light the world on fire, but I think it's doable for a true freshman quarterback making that adjustment. We talked about that a lot on the last show. It's like, that's why you rarely see true freshmen quarterbacks starting at the Power 4 level, and why it's even more rare that you see those guys come out of the gate being incredibly successful, because it's such a big adjustment. You cannot judge Bryce Underwood until you see what happens with him in year 2. Now, if at the end of year 2, week 12, we're having the same conversation where it's questionable decisions and, throwing a lot of interceptions and mental mistakes and sidearming it and playing backyard football. If there's no development, if there's no structure to his game, then 100% you can have that conversation, but you can't have it now.
I don't think you're going to see that, because I'm telling you right now, Whittingham is one of those old school coaches, right? I wouldn't say like Bobby Knight, because Bobby Knight was a little bit too crazy, but he's like a Nick Saban. He's a Coach Krzyzewski. He's old school. He's strict. He's by the book. So if Bryce Underwood goes out there and throws some crazy nonsense that does some of this, off script stuff, and it doesn't work, the first person he's going to talk to is going to be Whittingham, and he's going to be standing right there, and he's going to snatch him up and tell him that's not how we play football, and that's not what we're going to do. And then they're going to get on the pat. If you look back at Michigan, and you made a comment on the last pod, he went and he threw that pick, and he was sitting on the bench smiling. I don't think that's happening with Whittingham, because it wouldn't have happened with Harbaugh. Somebody would have been in his ear, in his ass, saying, "Hey, what are we laughing about? For one, for two, what the hell were you reading?" And they're going to coach him on the spot.
How much do you read into that? Because we've seen that.
I don't care that he was smiling. I don't give a shit about that.
But there's a lot of people that have
never a coach there.
Well, I mean,
how does he throw a pick and just walk off to the bench? Yeah. Jim Harbaugh does not let him walk by. Nick Saban doesn't let him walk by.
He got dapped up by Sharon Moore on the way.
They did a little thing and put on some. But it's not
big dog,
because it might have happened. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sharon puts the phone down for a minute and daps him up. Has no idea what happened. But my thing was, I brought it up to a couple of my buddies. Like every time he was just sitting there by himself. He had his quarterback buddies with him or whatever. But there was nobody there, like with a tablet saying, "Dude, what the hell were you looking at?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some of that is in-game stuff. And I think for sure having a quarterback's coach, and I don't know if Detmer is going to be on the sideline or if he's going to be up in the booth. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But again, like it already seems like Whittingham understands that he's got, a pretty incredible talent, and Bryce Underwood is going to surround him with the types of guys that are going to make him better off for it. So I'll just say what I said before. You cannot judge this kid based on what he did as a true freshman with the coaching staff he had around him. That is an unfair judgment to make. Now moving into a second year, he's a year older. He's got a coaching staff around him that's more established, and he's got an entire offseason to work on and correct all those little issues that we saw in 2025. I think he's going to make a big leap forward. I think you're going to see a big jump from year 1 to year 2, which is typically what happens. I think you're going to see that with this guy. And again, if we don't see it, if we're talking about the same issues, week 10, week 11, week 12, then I think maybe there's a conversation to be had about, is he the guy? Is he not the guy? But again, I think it's way too soon here. Lewis from the YouTube page says, is this the Justice Haynes show? Enough already. I don't even know what that means, Lewis, but I'm offended by it.
The funny part is when he said it, we hadn't mentioned Justice Haynes for 5 minutes, but now let's go back to him. Let's talk about him.
Because you mentioned it, I am going to go back to. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you mention the potential return of a Heisman caliber running back in an offense that traditionally is pretty run heavy? That seems like a big deal. Like out of any guy that you could have back, maybe outside of Bryce Underwood, like I said, it's 1A Bryce Underwood, 1B Justice Haynes, and then I think you go down to guys like Andrew Marsh and the rest. But yeah, that's massive if that ends up happening, and it sounds like it's going to. Are there any questions? We're at 57 minutes here. Did I miss anything as we were going through this? I'm looking for the little question marks.
Tip offs in about 30 seconds. You're about to lose.
In about 30 seconds. Okay, that's fine. So we got Michigan basketball coming up. I mean, we've had a decent group in here the whole time, which again, I appreciate so much. We didn't really announce that we're going live, but things are happening. I guess we'll it's a wait and see situation. We know that Michigan has to make several more moves. They've got to bring some guys back, but they've also got to go into the portal, hit that pretty hard and bring some guys in. Jared and I talked about that, whether it be on the defensive line, maybe in the secondary. You're going to see some guys from Utah, potentially BYU, come over to Ann Arbor. Things are going to continue to happen, and it's going to speed up, and I'm guessing you're going to see a lot of announcements in the coming days. And so it feels very hectic right now. It feels uncertain, but there are pieces that are falling into place that at least are starting to give us some comfort that this thing could look pretty damn good next season. Now it's just a wait and see, and what does this roster look like? And we'll try to provide as many updates as we possibly can. And then, Jared, by the time we get on here next live, you are going to be out on Thursday, right? You're going to be gone here
Monday.
Or that's
Monday
next
I'll
week.
Be in Georgia.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. We might hop on here on Thursday again and just do a fan-led show. You know what, Jared? Let's do that. Let's just commit to that now. Let's do a fan-led show on Thursday. We'll log on here. We'll go live, and you guys guide the show. Get in here, ask questions. You guys, whatever topics you want us to cover, we'll do that when we see you back here on Thursday. But until then, enjoy Michigan hoops. I don't know, probably going to be another 30-point plus win against Penn State tonight. Those guys are unreal.
I think they win by 40. I think
we haven't even spent much time talking about them, and they're just killing everybody they face. So go enjoy that game to make yourself happy, and then we'll be back here on Thursday to talk more Michigan football. Until then, appreciate you guys for checking in here. We'll see you Thursday.